This is Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. It is turn 10. And as usual, don't really remember. Yeah, it's just the solo expand. Okay. It looks like Bogarus did expand into those woods to block us off. They could have gone either place, but totally, I think trying to block off your neighbors is perfectly acceptable. Right, so we sent everybody against, there's not too much heavy cav here, right? So this is definitely overkill, although, we don't love heavy cav and heavy infantry with these Wolf Brothers. You can see we do struggle to cut through them a little bit. It took us a second, and then, this is not great either, so we'll probably take some casualties here. I think one group could have done this, but would have taken more casualties. So just 2 casualties, that's not too bad. Like I said, this isn't a particularly tough province, so probably could have split there. We do finish research and alteration, level 2. We really do kind of want level 3. Level 4 would be nice, but level 3 I think is kind of necessary before we want to take our first war, or at least like our first engagements. And so this is cool stuff. Hopefully we're going to get to see the Bless here. There goes the Bless. These guys, they have no armor, so you can see even just from a few archers, they start taking damage. Might be worth it. Yeah, okay. So these guys look like they're set up so that you do not want to melee them. So they're like maximum. Interesting. Okay, charged bodies. So not Blood Vengeance, like I was thinking, but I think sort of a similar idea, right? So, if you strike them, they're going to deal shock damage back to you, and then the decay weapons, right, is going to ensure that anybody that they damage is probably going to die, at least certainly for goblins. I don't think the goblins have particularly long lifespans. Poison resistance, never a bad thing. A little bit of HP, sure. And then penetration is probably maybe for his eparchs, but he also gets astral. I'm not sure if he gets any holy astral mages. Not super familiar. So some attack rear with the cavalry. Not too many cavalry though, and okay, it looks like he does get the route, but you can see these guys do die, and then the holy nuke spells, that's super dangerous. No bodyguards or anything though, right? So Wolf Brothers, we get a couple Wolf Brothers back there. We'll lose a few on the way in, but they're decently fast, so it won't take us long. This is his prophet. Who's this other guy in front? I guess probably just, the commander, right? Because these eparchs, they have no leadership, so they can't actually ferry any units around. That goes fairly well for him, although, he does lose a bunch of his sacreds, but, that's kind of what they're there for. I'll see you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. This was definitely one of those, junction sort of turns, where you could go one way or another way. I was very tempted to have this group of Wolf Brothers just attack this group here. I think there's a decent chance we would lose, right? Because he doesn't have a lot of heavy cavalry, but what he does have will be a bit tough, and we only have the one commander, so there's a fair chance we lose our commander. And it looks like he's been putting, a good amount of province defense, right? So we could probably expect 6 PD here to support this. And the eparchs are no joke, but the eparchs are also unguarded. So I think even if we lost, we could take out probably all of the eparchs, and we might be able to snipe his leadership before his heavy cavalry take us out. And our Wolf Brothers, I think our Wolf Brothers would beat that amount of heavy cavalry on their own, but with everything else supporting, I don't think we'd come away with it. So I think it's not worth it on the balance. We're not really ready otherwise to attack. I think it'd be better to kind of recruit. We're recruiting some more Wolf Riders here, as well as a hearse, and we really need to get this forest back. That is one thing. It's if you do want to do a quick and early attack as Vaettiheim, I knew that forests were important, but especially for an early attack, you want as many forests as possible so you can get out those raiding groups. Because our other forest, unfortunately, we're recruiting some archers, which I do think will help us. We can also use crossbowmen. These archers are not great at all. They're just short bows, and especially in the late age, they're going to be kind of worthless in some ways. But I'm mostly looking at these barbarians here, a little bit of help for the barbarians. I also think they're going to be decent. We see Calum here, right? So he's got some archers as well as Spirehorn warriors. Spirehorns don't have a lot of armor, even in the late age, so they don't love archer fire. The birds in general tend not to like archer fire. And of course, we're not thrilled to see Calum pop up here. Thought I was going to have more time for this province, to be honest. a little surprised they've chosen to come this far south. Like when they have, 2 cap circle provinces they haven't taken, they have another nation in their cap circle. So yeah, I'm not sure. Let's just double check. They didn't go AI or anything like that. No, yep, they're still human. So yeah, not sure. Like, this is a valuable province, decently valuable. So like, sure, but it's kind of like, don't, seems like maybe your attention should be focused elsewhere. But we'll probably talk with Marignan. Marignan had already made noises about attacking Calum, right? And it's like if we just pick up like these 2 provinces, that would be fine. Now, of course, there's a chance that Pangea, we might bump with Pangea basically, because it's kind of looking like Pangea is also interested in Calum territory. Though I mean, maybe not. Yeah, I've never really heard of like people just giving up their cap circle to someone else peacefully, but people do all kinds of different things. And we do see Pangea's capital here, so we're going to jump on top of that, and see what's going on. But yeah, I think, possibly, basically, whenever Marignan wants to jump in on Calum, like we'll help a little bit, and help mostly by just raiding away a few provinces. And we'll probably leave this for Marignan, just leave him like with the cap circle of Calum. He's going to be doing the majority of the lifting, so like we're not looking to pick up too much, because I do think our first war is going to be Bogarus. They don't look that big. I mean, we don't fully know how far down they extend, but we can see that these are independent, so they're not that big. And most of the territory they do have would be a nice addition for us in a lot of ways. I think it would make it a decent shape. We see a couple different factions here, which is kind of a good thing, right? Because it's just going to give us a narrow border. Well, I mean, we already have a border with Abyssia, and just because Abyssia staled a few times, like we'll see. I think we've managed to get a sub for them, or they've started playing again. But I think Abyssia, in fact, so Arco is in their cap circle, so they may already be getting attacked. I just don't think Abyssia is going to be much of a factor early on. Now, whoever replaces them might be, but yeah, and then we see this is, Gath, which is sort of like the Hinnom and Ashdod line of nations, although I think their sacreds are a little less scary in the late age. And then we see some more independence down here. So, like, there's actually still room for expansion and everything, and, we'll see who pops up, but, Bogarus actually double expanded this turn, or I mean, at least they picked up these 2 forests, definitely. And we would like those forests, right? There's like 2 forests on offer here. I did say about how like I didn't really want to thrust myself out in this direction for expansion, but it's a little different if we're going to take like all of Bogarus, right? Or at least most of Bogarus. We might talk with like, who is this? Utgard? Yeah, so we might talk with Utgard and, join with them. I'm not sure Bogarus is really going to be big enough. Like ideally we get at least like most of the cap circle for this capital. Although that said, like we don't really need resources as Vaettiheim, and, it is a citadel. So the problem with, trying to get the cap circle is like, well, like what is, Bogarus is not that big. So, we take, the cap circle, the cap, and all this, like, what are they, that's not a joint war. That's just me taking everything, which would be ideal. But I'm not sure we can pull it off. There isn't much on Bogarus's capital, and I doubt there's any patrolling. So, we see he's recruiting these starets, which are his cap-only mages, and then alchemists. So, like, yeah, not really sure how Bogarus works. Here are these alchemists, kind of interesting, like good cross paths, relatively low cross paths. Of course, they can all communion up, which is very nice, and they get a bonus to alchemy, which sometimes I play around with, but a lot of people feel isn't a very worthwhile use of your gems or time. And like they're decent researchers, although I think, he was going for a research rush. I know, yeah, these Master of Names, they have this add-up research bonus. They have a lot of research. I think they're like roughly the same amount of gold. Yeah, the Master of Names are a little more expensive, but in the ballpark. So not sure what kind of strategy Bogarus is going for, but it looks like probably not a research rush. At the same time, they don't have any army at home. Like, we know this has been whittled down a pretty good amount. Like, this isn't that scary. I'm sure they have, something else, right? So there's probably some other force that's expanding. Obviously, we know that, they took this forest. So there's probably, some kind of force in there. But it doesn't really look like they have a ton at the moment. They have been doing some foreign recruiting, but, these provinces probably aren't really... They're not going to be able to get that many units out of them. So yeah, I think, we have like 3 turns roughly, 3 or 4 turns until we get Alteration 3. And like, we'll probably start, moving like sneaking groups out into the territory. For this turn, we're kind of just being defensive, because that's the other thing, right? It's like, okay, I could attack Bogarus like right now and like maybe snipe a couple of his commanders who actually are not slow to recruit. These up arcs are capital only, but you can pop one out every turn, and they're only 145 gold, so not cheap, but not expensive either. So would that be that much of a swing? I don't know. And we have a lot of infrastructure, right, that's being constructed. So we actually have no other forts up yet. We have, 2 months left on this palisade. So, this Wolf Brother group is actually coming home to defend that, because that's the other thing, right? He may look at this and see like, okay, a single commander, a really juicy province, that's probably a fort going up. Maybe it's time, preempt the Vaettiheim Alpha Strike and just attack. So we've done a bit of a PD dump, which I don't know. I do like having a decent amount of PD on my forts, but as I recall, I think Vaettiheim's PD, is pretty underwhelming. So, this PD is actually like okay. This is a little underwhelming as well, but once this turns into our fort, Vaettiheim doesn't actually get very good national PD. And similarly, we've kind of PD dumped here. This actually is a pretty nice PD type, but will turn into, just kind of crappier goblins once it becomes a fort. But if it keeps our fort up, that's the other thing, right? Like maybe Calum just decides to walk at us. And the other option, of course, is to reach out to these players and, try to negotiate for non-aggression packs. But since we're thinking about attacking both of them, it's like, okay, maybe we just need to play a little defense until our infrastructure gets up. This palisade will go up next turn. So we're just doing some site searching here, and then, we'll build our other infrastructure here, assuming we hold the province. I'm not expecting to get attacked in either case, but it is possible, and I think probably worth it. I mean, that's a lot of gold to be losing, and we're getting decent income, but some of that was from our luck, like that event that we had that gave us a bunch of gold. So we probably won't actually be able to, if both forts get knocked down, we won't be able to start 2 new palisades. If we do lose both of these, which I don't think so, because we have enough defense, this fort is still going up. So this has 3 months. So, it's going to be a while, but like I said, like in 3 turns, we'll have a bunch more forts up. We'll have some research done or close to done. We'll hopefully have some more stealthy raiding groups, and then, we can move our forces out and like hit Bogarus really hard all at once, rather than just like one attack that maybe snipes some kind of valuable commanders. So actually talking through it, I do think this is the right call, but it was tempting. Also of note, we've started producing our Veti Hags out of this forest. We're bringing our Wolf Riders up, Wolf Brothers up, and they'll probably go after the barbarians this next turn. We really want to get that forest back. Going to be a little attrition there probably, but our high defense should help, and we have quite a few Wolf Brothers here. Breaking out one of the commanders, he's going to go, collect some Wolf Riders, actually Riders in this case, and we're recruiting, a few more Wolf Riders, another hearse. We're going to want like as many hearses, not as many hearses as possible, but quite a few hearses, to sort of spread out, and take a bunch of provinces simultaneously. I have reached out to Satis and offered a non-aggression pack 3. We'll see, like possibly they're gearing up to attack me, but probably not. I really don't know. They have the pretender name, the Dream of Not Getting Eaten. Vaettiheim, I think, is fairly strong in the early game. So, a Satis attacking into Vaettiheim, probably somewhat unusual. But, I mean, at the same time, like, there's certainly enough stuff to overwhelm our PD, and even our Wolf Brothers wouldn't love going up against this. So, I'm not expecting that, but it is possible. I think he's probably this is just foreign recruitment, because I guess Satis probably doesn't get crossbows. No, they do not. And in fact, the only ranged unit they get is this cap-only Poison Slinger, who is actually pretty nasty. He's got this area of effect, like Poison Sling. So, if you don't have poison resistance, that can be kind of rough. But of course, cap-only. They're not sacreds, but, they're limited to capital recruitment. So could totally see, wanting to foreign recruit some crossbows. So I think, he's just doing some recruitment here, and it's probably not headed my way, and that these guys are probably headed back. These Tomb Guard kind of rely on protection, and he's only got 20 of them. So slamming those into 60 barbarians who are good at overcoming protection, probably not the best idea, which is why, he's headed home with them. But we'll see. That Diplo just went out, so there's no response yet. And then also of note, Marignon, took their throne. Very cool. This is looking pretty scary. Has managed to push out a ton of units. This is probably inflated somewhat from the scout reports. But, he does start with a citadel. That is one thing. Most factions in the late, I don't know about most, a lot of factions in the late age definitely start with citadels. Yeah, here's Pangea, also just stuck with a castle. capital. But yeah, Vaettiheim does not, right? So we start only with a castle. So we're actually a little bit behind in terms of recruitment compared to a lot of other nations early on, right? Because they can, just recruit more stuff, generally speaking, out of their capital. Certainly they get more commander recruitment. Now, of course, we offset this a lot by using the forests, but, it is important to note. And then we can also see that Marignon's first fort is completely on time, right? He started on turn 6. It's up on turn 10. From what I've heard, that's sort of like the preferred timing for your first fort, and we are behind 1 turn, but hopefully we got the numbers which will make up for it. We're also taking our capital recruitment and just sending it at this province. It's possible we bump the birds, although they have some mammoths here. Probably not too many mammoths, but I don't think mammoths can... Actually, let's double check. Yeah, mammoths do not have mountain survival, right? So they're not going to be able to move through that mountain pass. Normally, the birds could, fly and take this. He could always leave the mammoths behind. So just in case, hold and attack flyers for both of these. I don't think it'll matter. Like for the Indies, it'll be, they'll just pick some random group if there's no flyers, and it'll be fine. I'm not worried about these Indies at all, especially right. It's winter, so yeah, this is going to be cold 3. So our Rimvetti are going to be pretty good. Although now that I thought about it, I actually switched out the commander because we couldn't actually bless with the other commander. Of course, this is going to cut into our research a little bit, but these guys don't research great. So we are getting one of our cap onlys here this turn for the mages, which will help boost our research. Obviously, these research decently faster. Actually, that's less of a swing than I was expecting. So yeah, these are not super efficient for research, but it is a little more research, and we do want them for other things. So yeah, I think that covers recruitment, and we don't really see too much else of the world yet. We are recruiting a few more scouts, pushing some scouts out. We'll probably sit a scout, just leave him here to see when there is a throne battle, because yeah, Marignon moved fast. I wasn't expecting him to take their throne so quickly, so unfortunately we didn't get to see what they're using or their bless or anything like that. So don't want to repeat that mistake. We'll probably also want to, get a scout up here at some point on this throne. And yeah, I think that covers turn 10. All right, Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim. This is turn 11. And so expansion traditionally is almost over, and I think this is one of, if not our last battles against the independents. So let's take a look. Right, we're moving out our stuff from the capital. We're slightly worried about bumping with birds, but I didn't see any, bird bumps in the notifications. And this is a relatively, this is a pretty easy indie province. Actually, there's not as much heavy infantry as I was worried about, and especially at winter, you can see that, my Rimvetti do pretty well. I definitely think the Rimvetti are worth a bless. But of course, there are other elements to balance with in this nation in terms of what you want out of a bless. So yeah, we may have lost someone there. No losses, but pretty easy province. Still nice to clear out. I believe this was our cap circle. And then we had some site searching. We missed actually with our better mage, but she was searching in a farmland where magic sites are not as common, and we found 2 sites, which is very nice. This actually provides us with a mage, which I think could be significant because she's going to random into some paths that we don't normally get. So yeah, we're planning on foreign recruiting our own mages out of here, but maybe this is worth a fort now? I don't know. We'll have to think on it. We can still recruit these mages, foreign recruit them without a fort. It's just, I think they take 4 commander points, so we'll only be able to get one of those, every 4 turns, I think, without a fort versus every 2 turns. So yeah, we'll have to think on that. I believe the other one is just an Astral Pearl, which we do appreciate. We do have a decent amount of Astral, and some unexpected events. Hey, plus 17 water gems. Wow, this is very nice. Must be on the edge of our territory. Of course, you do get some lucky events, even when you take misfortune. And then yeah, our palisade finished, and we didn't get attacked anywhere, so very glad about that. And I will catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Expansion is pretty much done. This is part of Byssia's cap circle. Looks like it was taken over by villains. But at least as far as reachable indie provinces, other than thrones, we don't really have anything left available to us. Our scouts have actually seen a decent number of indie provinces out here, past. It looks like Bogarus is not that big. Not that we're particularly big either. I'd say that overall I've had pretty middling expansion, like not terrible, but not great either. So Bogarus is not that much smaller than us. We do have more infrastructure up than them, just by a little bit. They are building a fortification here. There is, of course, some temptation to try to assassinate the person building it, but we're going to go ahead and pass for now, because again, we'd prefer to make a bigger attack. Bogarus is still kind of who we're planning on attacking first. We'll see about Calum. I think we have a sub, but this player certainly seems much more active. Haven't chatted with Marignon yet, but yeah, still expecting there's a good chance they'll come in against them. Calum still isn't very big, and they still have Pangea in their cap circle. Speaking of, we do have a scout on top of Pangea's capital. Not too, nothing crazy here. We don't see any, awake pretender. So it could be an imprisoned build, or, maybe the pretender's out doing something. He also has a throne in the cap circle. Might go take a look at that. Not really sure what their scales are yet, so hard to say whether, they have an awake pretender we're just not seeing, or, some sort of scales build. So we'll keep an eye on Calum, but it's going to be a lot harder for us to pick up a good amount of territory just because of how the borders work. There's some other, So I think, the Calum situation is going to be more of a sideshow for us, hopefully. Obviously, Calum might feel differently and attack us, in which case we'll have to deal with that. But yeah, Bogarus, I think we just, our capitals are closer. I think it's going to be a better war for us, but we do need to start moving, and so, to that end, we are going to take out this barbarian province here. I went ahead and left this in place, so this is something that happens with the Wolf Brothers and probably also the Wolf Riders. Sometimes a, rider dies, I think usually, maybe always, when the rider dies, the wolf sticks around. Not actually 100% on that, I'll have to double check. But definitely sometimes, a wolf without a rider survives the combat and then is just in the squad, which is kind of cool. It's thematic. Unfortunately, wolves are undisciplined. And this one's diseased. And so, it actually switches the formation to be skirmish, right? Because the whole squad now is, if you mix disciplined troops with undisciplined troops, they all act as an undisciplined unit. So, we cannot give them any orders, and they just go into skirmish, and yeah, it can really cause some trouble. So it's good, to move those wolves out into their own squad. We'll probably just abandon this wolf in the province, since, we're over the number of squads this fellow can lead. Once you move the wolf out, then you can issue orders to that squad, same as normal. They go back to their normal box formation. So just figured I'd point that out, because that's definitely something that tripped me up a few times when I was doing my expansion testing. But anyway, this is what we're sending in against the barbarians. So, we have just a few archers. Would like more archers, but like I said, we do need to get it moving. And I think this will be enough to at least, cause some casualties, hopefully get a few kills. We have a few of, just the cheap spearmen. So we'll probably lose all of them, but that's okay. They're there to just keep the barbarians busy and, provide other targets for their hammers. The Wolf Brothers maybe could handle this on their own. Maybe with fewer losses, because they do have, decently high defense, and barbarians can struggle with that. But yeah, would prefer to just have the chaff soak up any damage, since probably going to be using these Wolf Brothers in our first war for raiding. So we're going to get rid of the barbarians there. Our recruitment is pretty constrained. We're going to squeeze out just a couple more sacreds and one of our cheaper, Nature 1 commanders. These guys aren't great. They're not great researchers. They're okay in battle. But we are upgrading this fortress and building a temple here. I do think Marignon took death scales, because, this has got death. This has got death. I think we lost track on some of this, but this has got death. I was a little bit concerned that I was, building a fortification on a death site. Still not impossible, but I'm pretty sure now that these are just Marignon scales. So, extra important that we get our temples up over on this side of our, lands, especially here. No, we do not want death scales here. We want growth 3 here. So, we're going to move down and build a temple here, as quickly as possible, definitely. But of course, it's not cheap. May have overdone it with the infrastructure. If you've seen some of my other playthroughs, you know that sometimes I have not built enough infrastructure early on, at least I feel like. This might actually be the reverse, especially since, we kind of want to knife someone early. I feel like usually it's like, okay, you kind of have to pick between, it's like, do you build a bunch of infrastructure or do you have an early war? And I mean, you still want to build some infrastructure, I think. One other fort is like just minimum, because otherwise somebody sits on your capital, blocks your recruitment. And for Vaettiheim, you at least have the foreign recruitment, but a lot of that's like, cheaper raiding forces. It's if you couldn't stop the army, from sitting on your capital, probably what you're going to foreign recruit out in the woods isn't going to stop, whatever you couldn't stop before. So I do think, having one other fort is pretty important, even for early wars. We're going to end up with 3 extra forts, which, is probably too many for an early war. I don't think any of the forts that we have are bad per se, and I think they'll serve us well in the long run, but it might mean that Bogarus gets a chance like to dig in, like we're not going to hit as early as we otherwise could have hit, but we'll see. Still new at trying to get all the timings down and trying to pull off an elfing, basically. Obviously, lots of other things could happen. We do see a large Utgard force here. I do think there was quite a few barbarians there, so that's probably what this is about, but they may be thinking about attacking someone. Satis, like I said, is, usually considered a rush target. Speaking of Satis, they have agreed to a non-aggression pact 3 with me, so this border at least is relatively secure, barring Utgard, who was friendly, but, we haven't actually signed any treaties, so it's not impossible that this army is destined for me. Probably not, considering, we share more of a border and I would expect a larger attack, but yeah, you never really know. I'm probably not going to reach out to Utgard just yet. I am trying to strike a balance between, enough naps, but also enough possible targets. I think Vaettiheim is going to stack up okay. Usually high attack density is one of the things that, giants can struggle with, and like a lot of units. And, we check both of those boxes as a size 1 nation. So, at least in melee, I think we're going to stack up decently well. As far as the magic goes, I'm not really sure. And they do have a few provinces, right, that would kind of nicely round out our other future gains. I'm sure everything will go fine. Definitely not going, to pick 2 fights at once. But yeah, just not really feeling the need to reach out to them just yet. Otherwise, we did find Patala's capital, and yeah, it looks like this is part of the reason there's so many indies over here. It looks like they're doing quite poorly. I do think that I've never played Patala, but I've heard that their expansion can be pretty tough. Late age expansion in general, I think, is just a little bit harder, and they're a monkey nation. And the monkey nations can sometimes, struggle to expand anyway. So, it can be a tough life, I think, being a monkey nation in the late age. And, I mean, you never know. Like, things happen. You run into wind mages early or something and lose your first expansion party. But the fact that, there's 3 cap circle provinces of theirs that are independent still, and it's turn 11. If things go well enough against Bogarus, we may just keep eating. But probably there's someone else or a couple someone else's, who are looking hungrily at this. So pretty unlikely that we'll be able to get both, especially with how slowly we're moving. Again, maybe if we were moving a little faster, right, we could pick up 2 capitals. So yeah, we're going to keep cruising around here with our Dimveti. We are hoping to maybe catch like some Bogarus expansion, right? Bogarus may also like have this province down here. So we kind of just want to make sure that there's nothing of Bogarus's that, that we don't know about. After that, we will probably withdraw like our Dimveti. We do, have a few scouts moving up, and like we're recruiting. This is actually a scout province here, which, I mean, yeah, there's lots of scout provinces in the late age, but I'm always a little sad when I build a fort on a scout province, because then it's like, okay, now I need to recruit mages and stuff out of there, whereas before you could recruit scouts. Definitely totally worth it, a fort on this province. But yeah, we're trying to recruit some scouts before we get that fortification up, because this is a much better positioned scout province versus, we have a couple over here on the other end of our empire. So yeah, we'll replace our scouting with actual scouts. I think I'm probably overbuilding scouts as Vaettiheim. I think probably you're supposed to do your scouting like with the hearses, right? And, your scouts just become raiders. But again, in the vein of like not being ready, like I need to when I move the hearses out, I want them to have enough units with them so that they could actually conceivably, take a relatively lightly defended province. And I just don't quite have that set up yet. I don't have the troops divvied out to all the hearses and everything. So yeah, probably overbuilding scouts. Like I said, some of it's just the joy of being in late age and, coming from early age where it's very difficult to find scouts. And, now I just have them coming out of my ears. So yeah, but I would say probably as Vaettiheim, you want to build fewer scouts and just rely on your raiders to double as scouts. So as the game goes on, we're going to try to move in that direction, but no guarantee. Worst case scenario, we all get to see more cool battles. And I think that more or less covers it. Let's see, research. Yeah, we still have a couple turns left on our Alteration 3, which is really sort of what we need, I think, to go forward and start this war. Alt 4 will be a pretty big upgrade, but we can probably get that during the war, and probably isn't worth waiting to launch our attack. We might wait for this before we try to storm the capital or force a large battle. We'll see. Really depends. And then one final note on scouting. I'm still obviously trying to figure things out, but I will say at least for this game, and I think this is probably a decent rule of thumb, is you should probably have one scout for each of your neighbors, and you should just sit that scout on their capital. And the capital PD is high enough that over time, eventually there's a decent chance the scout will get patrolled out. But regardless, I think even if the scout gets patrolled out by the PD, it'll be able to spend a long time there. And it'll also give you some information about is the player aggressively patrolling their forts, which I think is useful information, right? So it's sort of either way, right? If your scout gets patrolled out immediately, then it's okay, this player is aware of scouting, they care about scouting, and they're, working to prevent you from getting information. Whereas if you can just leave a scout sat on top of someone's capital for the whole game or a long time, then that tells you that either they're not worried about being scouted or they're not aware of it. And then of course you also get to see everything that's popping out of their capital, and that's not always where the most interesting things are going on, but it usually is, right? That's where pretenders appear. It's usually the safest location. So, a lot of interesting summoning tends to happen. So anyway, we'll see. But what I'm going to try to do is, park a scout on each one of my neighbors' capitals, and we'll kind of just see, where it goes from there. So anyway, a lot of thoughts on scouting, and I think that covers turn 11. All right, this is Fullest House, first edition, where we are playing Vaettiheim, and this is turn 12 coming up. Actually, do know that Marignan launched their attack against Calum. They communicated that over Discord. Hey, we find a site. I think this is a nature gem. Looks good. We like nature gems. And then we have, this is the barbarians, I believe, in our cap circle. Yeah, not too many barbarians. So we are expecting some casualties here. We'll see if our archers can maybe help us out. Barbarians don't have the best morale. Ooh. My spearmen were too far back. So they are doing absolutely nothing for us, but it looks like it does work out. We have a little bit of friendly fire here from some of our arrows. Maybe losing a couple wolves, which is sad. We don't want to lose the wolf brothers, but it does work out for us. Maybe shouldn't have had the archers. Archers in general are, pretty good against barbarians, but in that case, we may have ended up just killing, friendly firing more of our wolf brothers there. Because the barbarians only got one kill, but we lost 3 wolf brothers. So possibly that would have been cheaper for us. Without any archers, but it's not too many losses. We get some more prophets coming up. The dormant pretender gods are awakening, so somebody's dormant god has awoken, I believe is what that means. It's definitely going to be worth taking a look if Bogarus is one of those ones that's running a dormant pretender god. Of course, they don't all wake up at the same time, so if we don't see one there this turn, that doesn't mean that it isn't going to be here in a turn or two. And then, we lose some taxes. Hey, find some earth gems. That's nice. And then sadly, we lose our scout here on top of Calum's capital. So interested to see if this is some patrolling. This looks like patrolling to me. There's some mages here with these groups. So that's interesting. So I guess probably correctly anticipated Marignon's attack, which, probably isn't too surprising. Marignon doesn't really have any stealthy troops. So they probably moved some forces to the border last turn. And yeah, so there's quite a few Spire Horns there with some mages patrolling. Very nice. And unfortunately, I think he dies retreating in enemy territory. So we do lose a scout there, but we do get some information. So not the end of the world. And then another one of our palisades finished. And I will see you guys after the jump. Alright, so this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Probably most of note is Marignon's attack. Remember when I said that they didn't get any stealthy troops? Well, I wasn't thinking about scouts. I had noticed actually that this Calum player in a few provinces had put absolutely no province defense. And yeah, Marignon took advantage of that. So if you have no province defense, just single scout can attack it and take it. And so that's probably also what happened in Snowford, because I don't think Marignon, they do get some summons later on, but early on they don't really have anything in the way of flying troops. So this is probably at least like a double scout attack. And very nicely done. And, he communicated that he just went ahead and left this province here for me, which was very nice. And yeah, he has more than enough problems, and also Marignon has sailing in this era, and so yeah, I think a lot of his efforts are probably going to be focused around this lake, since that's where his mobility is highest. And so, just by leaving me one province here, especially since I have a fort here, it's in my dominion, this just keeps me happy, right? And makes sure that, he's got a nice secure border here, and it does indeed make me happy. And so, I have no thoughts. Marignon is looking very, very nice, very strong right now. I think they're a nation that can struggle out of the gate, but, yeah. This player, I've played with them before and is doing a really good job. They're a good player, and I think they're demonstrating that now. I think they're bigger than we are, and definitely ahead of us in terms of launching their first war. In our defense, Calum is a bit of a smaller target. Not that Bogarus is looking particularly large here, so we have lost sight of their capital, so we're going to move a scout onto that and make sure we don't have some god waking up that we're going to have to think about. We'll probably still go in, even if there's a god. We may just have to adjust our research a little bit. So anyway, yeah, the only attack we're making is against this lone Calum province. There's a possibility that we bump with Pangea. So, we're sending in our Wolf Brothers squad. Pangea can get a lot of heavy armor. So, if we run into some serious Pangean force, then we'll bump. But short of that, I think we'll clean up almost anything. So that is our one attack. I was very tempted to take this group here and just attack into this Abyssian province, because it does look like Arcocephalia is cleaning Abyssia up. And yeah, I don't think Abyssia is going to be with us for too much longer. And, Arco probably can't quite get to this province yet. They may be sitting on Abyssia's cap. We do have a scout headed over that way, to get eyes on that. But, if they are on Abyssia's cap, they're probably focused on cracking it. I don't know. They could conceivably split out a raiding force here, but probably I think these elephants are just going to come here and then here. And so, yeah, we have an opportunity to grab this, but kind of in the same way, I'm hoping to keep Arco happy for now, at least, right? Because, we're looking at picking up a lot more territory. So is it really worth antagonizing Arco for just one province? If we weren't about to be busy with other stuff, yeah, maybe. But we are about to be busy with other stuff, hopefully. So we're going to go ahead and leave that alone. We'll probably reach out to Arco this turn or next turn, send them out on a nap. Maybe actually not even bring up a nap, but yeah, just kind of talk and see where they're at. Because, of course, if we sign anybody that we sign a nap with means that, we can't use our stealthy forces to launch a surprise attack. So there's a bit of a balance there. And we are still not moving any of our stealthy forces in. This is definitely feeling late. I think I'm just trying to do, too many things. I think all of these things that I'm doing are probably decent, but trying to do all of them simultaneously is too much, right? So we're trying to get infrastructure up in the forests to get our foreign recruitment going. We're building 3 forts, which is definitely too many, I think, for this stage in the game. I think 2 would have been fine. 1 is probably defendable. It's not 3 is bad, but it's just slowing us down a lot. That said, I was saying that Bogarus was doing a good job with their foreign recruitment, but that seems to have slowed down, and, he's pushing around a lot of site searchers, so, Bogarus is looking actually kind of quiet, which is good for us. So, we'll see. Maybe they have some scary god that, is coming online, and that's why they feel safe, but we haven't really seen any other, major armies, that were doing expansion. Obviously there's still some indie provinces over here, so, yeah, they probably don't have an abundance of troops So maybe that's an argument to move earlier, but I was actually going to send out this group here, but I'm not sure. These aren't Wolf Brothers, right? These are Wolf Riders, and only 8 of them. Bogarus has been, putting province defense, right? Like, let's see, yeah, quite well organized. So it's at least 6, probably 6, but could be more. Maybe this beats 6 PD. I haven't tested enough, like with just these Wolf Riders. So we're just going to do a little bit more recruitment for this group, and see how that goes. And then, of course, like once this group finishes off with this Kalen province, we'll send them over, and then we're going to beef up much more faith in our Wolf Brothers. But we're a little light here. Would like to have 2 groups of these guys, not at this size. So we're going to do a little bit more Wolf Brother recruitment here, and then we're going to go ahead and probably split between these 2 hearses, and these will each be a raiding group. And then also to that end, we are sacrificing a bit of research, and this is probably also somewhat of a questionable strategy, since you can perform stealthy raiding without having to use your mages, but this is a way to get like a lot of groups quickly into a lot of areas. So you can use these guys with a couple Wolf Brothers as a bodyguard, and then they can throw up some 1 square buffs on themselves, and they can somewhat reliably take down 6 PD, just themselves. So we'll be sending them out, giving it a shot. I have done some testing with this, but like not extensive testing, especially like in the late age. So we'll see how that goes. Between all of this, like we'll be able to hit 4 provinces up here. So we'll probably go for both of these forests, and maybe these 2, right? And then this guy will round out maybe down here, and then we have one other group of these Wolf Riders. We're doing some more force recruitment here of the Wolf Riders. So that hearse will hang out for 1 more turn, pick up those Wolf Riders, maybe move down, grab some Wolf Riders down here, and then possibly like hit this province or this province. So I don't think we're going to quite be able to cover Bogarus, and then possibly we should probably hit the capital. That'll probably be what our infantry does, and I think we have enough infantry here. We will want to send some mages out with them, so I mean this is going to be very costly in terms of research, but if we hit the capital as well, that'll probably be it. We might want to bounce off. It depends on like what kind of research he has and how many troops he has in the capital, but it's probably worth hitting the capital just to strip it of the PD, even if we back off real quickly. So as you can tell, the attack plan is still not fully fleshed out, but of course, as with any kind of elfing or alpha strike, the idea is to hit as many provinces simultaneously. We do not have a non-aggression pact with Bogarus. I'll double check that, because that would be an awful mistake to make, but I am 99.9% sure that we don't have a non-aggression pact. So we'll be hitting a bunch of his provinces, hopefully stripping the capital of its PD, and maybe just locking down recruitment permanently if we feel like our infantry is going to be able to hold up to whatever Bogarus has. Of course, Bogarus does have a citadel, and goblins are not fantastic siege strength, so we are still missing 1 element, and probably not this turn or next turn, but maybe 2 turns from now, we're going to be recruiting our Jotun hurlers, which are great siege strength and a really nice thing for us to have. These guys are not stealthy, so if anybody has a scout on our capital, if they see these hurlers start to appear, then they know either I have no idea what I'm doing, or I'm planning on sieging a fort relatively soon. Because these guys, they're 30 gold to bring in. They're kind of expensive to upkeep. Like, yeah, that's a lot of upkeep. That's probably like more than our sacreds by a ton. Now of course sacreds, they cost less. They cost half upkeep. But even our non-sacred troops, right? Same story, like much cheaper, and like these are much better troops than the hurlers. So the hurlers are pretty much just, to break the walls efficiently, which we do definitely want. So we'll be getting some of them. We are not getting one of our cap-only casters this turn, which is very sad and could absolutely be a mistake. Like I said, I'm kind of trying to do too many things at once here, and so we're kind of suffering in our capital recruitment. We are at least getting a useful mage, so that's good. And, we got our first hag out here, water random, which will be more useful later on, and we're continuing our recruitment there, and then we are continuing to get some infrastructure up, right? So we're building a lab this turn. That's also part of why we're having to cut capital recruitment. No lab or anything, like no upgrading on this fort, which considering that, this is the front line and might get sieged, we'll probably hold off on upgrading this and building like lab and temple here and focus on, getting this up and running because the palisade will finish here next turn. And then the one final thing we're doing is we're just going to ping a scout off of this throne just to have a look at it. Also too, like that might lull Bogarus a little bit. If they left a scout there, they'll see the ping and be like, oh, okay, like, Vaettiheim is thinking about this throne. I'm probably okay, which we are thinking about that throne, but we're thinking about Bogarus first. But yeah, we just want to see what's on it. We might need some specific research to, this is going to be kind of a nasty throne as level 2 thrones go. So yeah, we'll just want to start thinking about that. And I think that covers what I have for turn 12. But something I thought I would add for this playthrough is just sort of a tour of the F buttons, if you will, at the start of every year to just sort of, get an idea of the progress and maybe be able to make easy comparisons to other playthroughs in the future. So we're going to start with F1, which is the nation overview, and, we can see our provinces here. Relatively low unrest, although a decent amount of unrest. Defense, right, this is the province defense PD, probably a bit too high. I definitely had reasons for all of these dumps. Another thing that I forgot to mention, Marignon did mention the throne they grab or are about to grab is the throne of Gaia, which will cause attacks kind of all over, but especially in forests. And, obviously we're trying to do some foreign recruit in some of our forests. So we actually bumped some PD this turn in some of our forests. But yeah, I probably spend too much on PD in general. And, we're kind of seeing that in a lot of places. That said, I do kind of like having, non-standard levels of PD in various places to catch people. If you just have 6 PD everywhere, then they know exactly what to expect. Whereas if you have varying levels, I don't know, it raises the uncertainty. So I don't hate it, but this is where too much money has probably gone into this defense. So we ended up with 14 provinces at the end of expansion, which I would say for a normal game is like mediocre expansion. It's like you'll survive, but you're not going to be one of the bigger players. And of course, this map has fewer provinces per player, so I think we're doing a little bit better than average. But as we can see from what Marignon is doing, there's definitely going to be players out there that are going to be bigger than us. It's not like we had amazing expansion or explosive expansion. So this will work, but we really do kind of need this first war here to kick off our territory and get us in a really good spot to be a contender in this game. Our site searching has been pretty limited, and that's something that people argue about back and forth. Obviously, the earlier you can site search, the more gems you're going to get, the better that it is, but there's lots of competing concerns. So we've gotten some site searching done, but not too much. We've gotten pretty lucky in our sites, actually. I mean, finding a Whispering Woods and the Steel Ovens without really having to work too hard for it, that's pretty lucky. So very happy, with the sites that we found so far, but we will want to, kick this up into high gear in the coming turns. So that is the nation overview. And then we can take a quick look at the graphs. They aren't going to be particularly exciting, but we can at least see that we have pretty steady growth, right, in our province count, which is what you want for expansion. There was, right, this is in the middle where I was a little bit concerned because we took a short pause there, but we did recover, and like I said, we finished with decent expansion. Forts-wise, is steady improvement here. Not too much to be said there other than that, our first fort was a little bit late, but nothing too bad. Income headed up. That's a good thing. Gem income also, I mean, you can see we don't have a ton of gem income. So, when you do find sites early on, registers is a huge jump. So I do think you have to be careful about reading too much into these early graphs. And then, of course, our research is relatively low, not a great slope on this line yet, but we'll get there. And then, Dominion, actually, we've been struggling a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on there. And we'll struggle more, actually, once Marignon claims that throne. We really do need to get another temple up, probably on that former Knight province. Dominion is usually one of the less interesting graphs, but in this case, we can see our Dominion's gone down a few times, probably due to misfortune events. I forget offhand, but I don't think our Dominion's getting pushed too hard just yet. Maybe some conflict with Marignon. And then, of course, army size, mostly going up, a little bit down here. So, it was not lossless expansion, but overall, definitely moving in the right direction. And then, of course, nobody's actually claimed any thrones yet. Sadly, we do not have any of the heroes. A lot of the heroes are kind of as you'd expect, right? So we see some from, well, okay, two from Raga. One of them is a mercenary. A lot of the mercenaries tend to take, like, I don't know about a lot, but yeah, mercenaries will get onto this early on. You can see like only one kill. But since he's been around for a while, he gets up here. Lemuria looks like they're using some thugs to expand, which is definitely something they can do. Yeah, they've got 3 of the slots, and then we see a giant, not surprising, and then, we see a couple of elves. Interestingly, Bogarus actually had somebody up here, but he has since died, so that's probably good for us. Yeah, the heroes usually don't matter too much, but for some of the thug nations, like some of the heroic traits can be a big deal, so farming this early, right, and getting up on this, like, while it's empty, can be kind of important, but less important for us. And then we have all of the pretenders. Nobody has been eliminated. Not always the case in the Full House games. I think we had an elimination on turn 6 once, but everybody is still here, although we do have some people, right? We know of at least 2 nations that are probably on the way out. I can't imagine that Patala is going to survive too much longer. There are probably other people that are getting eaten. So, by turn 12, especially in this format, you might be on your way out. And then research, we are quite low here, especially, so we're only at Alt 2. We would have hit Alt 3 this turn, but I pulled those goads off of research, so they won't be contributing this turn, but I do think it's worth it. We can just script the spells that they need once they actually get out. As long as we get the research that they need before they actually launch the attack, that'll be fine, and that's going to be at Alt 3. Alt 4 is really more of a nice to have, and if the war doesn't go well, something will fall back on. So yeah, not fantastic research, but this will hopefully start to pick up as all of our forts get online. And there are no global enchantments, which is probably not that surprising. And then we have our magic gem income. This is a screen I really should probably look at more, because it just provides you a really easy way of seeing, like, okay, how many gems am I getting right now? So this is the late age, so you only get 4 gems out of your capital, generally. And we're up to 10 here, which is very nice. So, we've more than doubled our starting income with pretty minimal site searching. Of course, there are sites that are revealed when you just capture the province, and move a commander in, so that's what a lot of this is coming from. Most of it is centered around, what our capital already provides, which is not too surprising, because, those are the paths that our mages get, and most of what we've been doing the searching in, I think we've searched a little bit of water, which we haven't found. And then weirdly, we have some air gems. I think that's actually just coming from, this mist-covered highlands. No, okay. So somewhere else there's an air site. And of course, that's pretty lucky because, we don't have any air, right? So it's not something we can search for. And, getting that amount of income, 2 is not a lot, but getting it so early means that we will end up with a stack of air gems that, we could either empower or trade with. So yeah, it's nice to have those air gems. And then speaking of gems, we have not wasted any on forging, so that's good. And there have not yet been any throne claims, although we do know that, Marignon is claiming this turn, so we will probably see a few other thrones get claimed relatively quickly as well. So yeah, that kind of covers like the year review. I'll do it again at the start of the second year, right? Yeah, you start at year 0 in Dominions. That covers year 0.